What's up, guys? Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Armando.
And I'm Jacob.
And we are the Gospel Guys. Guys, today we have an extremely cool episode. We have our church drummer extraordinaire, Broadway superstar, at one time my mentor when I was like a teenager, Morris McCormick.
My roommate.
At the moment. Man. How are you doing, Morris?
I'm doing good, man. Good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you for being here, man. We weren't sure who we were going to have on as a guest today, but we were like, you know what? Morris would be a really cool person to have on the episode. I would like to say, no offense, you're a well-seasoned veteran when it comes to Christianity. Like you're still going through stuff.
I'm still going through stuff.
And you've been through a lot already. And it's like, dude, like people who are going to hear your story, like I think will be very inspired because just from us knowing like what you've been through, what you are going through right now, like it's crazy. You really are going through your own like spiritual warfare. You know, you always have been and you're still here. Which is incredible, you know?
Yeah, praise God for that.
yeah, definitely. So we like to start the episodes off with a mind bender. Now, I don't really have a mind bending question, but I wanted to run something with you guys because I kind of like learned something new, so to speak. And I think I always knew it because I've read through the Bible a couple of times already. I think I just didn't really pay attention because I'm like super into horror, right? And so I was having a conversation with a Catholic at work the other day. And so like according to the Bible, like Christianity, like we don't believe in ghosts, right? Or at least we're not supposed to. Because we were talking about horror movies and we got into like brujeria and like how, you know, there's healings and stuff and like Catholicism and all that. And like I was really looking into it and like as far as like Christianity can go, like we don't believe in ghosts. Because the Bible says once the dead are dead, that's it, they're dead. Yeah. They're almost immediately judged, right? And so from what I can speculate, what the Bible says that any kind of like spiritual afterlife activity, it's all demons, whether it's good or bad. So what do you guys like think about that? Because I honestly, personally, like I would have said I believe in ghosts because I feel like I've seen things in my life, a couple things here and there, but like ghosts aren't real according to what we should believe in. How do you guys feel about that?
I'm gonna echo on that. I've had some experiences in my life, pre-Christianity, that wouldn't lead me to believe I had seen something, but. You know, from a biblical perspective, maybe not ghosts, but I know that we have angels that walk among us.
Sure.
How they present themselves, you know, I don't know. I know that they're around us and supposedly we don't necessarily recognize them, but they intervene in certain things in our lives. And we're supposed to always be careful to be doing what's right because it could be that it is a spiritual being. But yeah, the walking dead, so to speak, I don't know. That doesn't make biblical sense, right? You're right. It's like I would think your first consciousness after death is when you're standing before the Lord being judged. Like that would be what you remember next, your death, and then being there in front of God. Now, whether these apparitions are, you know, things that Satan puts out there to lead us astray, or, you know, quite honestly, you know, all of us are just a little, drugged up when we're seeing these things. Sure. Makes me wonder because I know from my past, you know, some intoxication probably had a lot to do with it.
Sure.
So I don't know. Although I hear people have other experiences, you know, and especially growing up in the Catholic Church, you know, I know that I knew a few people who believed they had seen the Virgin Mary appear.
And so that's another thing, because I was talking to this Catholic, right? I wasn't aware that Catholics believe in purgatory. And we don't.
Really?
Right.
Yeah. So that was another interesting thing because he was sharing how one of his houses was haunted when he was a kid, right? His brothers and his parents would see a lot of things and he wouldn't really. And so I guess they had figured out that there were like 3 spirits in his house. And one of them was like very, very calm. The other 2 were pretty aggressive and violent. But he was like, well, I don't know. Like maybe that one was like stuck in purgatory, right? And I was like, well, like we don't believe in that. And he was like, oh, but like, well, we do. You know, I was like, we didn't like disagree or like argue or anything like that. But I was like, okay, that's interesting because I didn't know Catholicism like embraced that idea. Yeah, you know,
the idea of that inner place where you can redeem yourself before you're judged.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's what life on earth is about.
Sure.
I think God gives us all the opportunity we need while we're alive.
Yeah, right. But what do you think, Jacob?
You know what's crazy is I've seen some stuff in my life.
Yeah,
like, no way. But
we should all share a story after.
I'll have one, but,
off camera.
No, on camera.
No, so I You know, it reminds me of the scripture when Jesus walking on water and they're
Mhm.
like, it's a ghost. So like,
Right.
I feel like they probably do believe in ghosts because they thought Jesus was a ghost. Like, oh,
Right.
it's a ghost. And they started freaking out.
Hmm.
So like, I don't know. Like that's also in there too.
Well, that's the thing too. So I was doing some research after we had the conversation, and like the reason I say that it's supposedly a demon, good or bad, is that the whole goal for demons is to stray away from God,
Mhm.
right? So if you go to an answer that's not God related and get like a good response, guess what? You went to somebody else instead of God, right? So that demon, even though you did something good or they did something good, it caused you to stray away from a Christian or biblical answer. So they're gonna keep doing like good acts of like I don't know spiritualism to like keep you away from the godly answer.
But
You know
even
what I
what you
mean?
brought up, like the idea of the episode on the boat, would suggest that what they saw was not a see-through
Right.
version of something, right? Which is kind of how Hollywood has built up the idea of a ghost. Like we all kind of grew up with Casper.
Yeah.
But they saw a person walking on water.
Mhm.
And so they use the word ghost or spirit, probably
Right.
is what
Probably
the word
spirit, yeah.
was in the Aramaic, but
Mhm.
it's not some sort of like aberration that was, invisible because Jesus was still alive at the time.
Mhm.
So he wasn't a spiritual being visually at that point.
Yeah.
Now, perhaps after his resurrection, that may have been true for a
Yeah.
moment,
Yeah.
but not in that episode. In that episode, it would have been that he was a full-blooded, flesh person.
Mhm.
And they saw him on water and referred to him using that word ghost,
Right.
which I don't think is the way we use that word anymore,
Mhm.
right? He didn't walk through walls and things like that during that period of his
Even though he probably
existence.
could have.
Even if he could have,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't something that he was doing.
Yeah.
But I do believe, the Jews grew up around all sorts of pagan religions that would have believed in spiritual,
stuff, yeah.
spiritual stuff, right? That was not necessarily Old Testament based.
Right.
So
Yeah, I just thought it was really interesting. Like I said, it wasn't really a mind bender, but like it kind of changed my perspective because, like I said, prior to that convo, I'm like, yes, ghosts are real. And now I'm like, man, like they're not. They're probably just all demons.
Mhm.
Or like in your case, you're just saying with angels, they're constantly all around us too. I know people who believe they've encountered angels, right? And so like my wife, for example, her dad, I guess when he was coming to the U.S. when he was younger, he reached a certain point in his journey where he didn't have like any money. And all he needed was like one last train to get here, right? So he was just chilling on a bench, I guess, and some dude like came to sit next to him and like asked him like, hey, hey, how's it going? Oh, hey, I'm trying to get here. I'm out of money. I don't know what to do. I guess this guy gave him some money, and Carlos, he like turned around or something, and by the time he like looked back, he was gone.
yeah,
Like, you gonna tell me that wasn't an angel? But then like, okay, I want to share one of my scary experiences. So when I was like 15, 16, my stepdad started working night shifts, right? And so it'd just be me, my mom, and my two little siblings at the house at night. And so there was one time we had a pretty small house back at this point in our life, and the only light on in the house was the bathroom light, which was in the hallway, which illuminated a good amount of the house, anyways. So just to put things into perspective, my mom was in the bathroom dyeing her hair, right? She was dyeing her hair black. I was awake on my phone or something. I went out to the kitchen to get a glass of water. And so as I'm like drinking the glass of water over the sink, I see somebody on my peripheral vision. So I look over and I see a clear person wearing all white with black hair, but like walk away. And I was like, oh, okay, my mom probably just came to check on me, right? So I walk back to my room and my mom's in the bathroom. And I'm like, hey, were you just in the kitchen? She goes, no, why? I was like, what do you mean? So realized I said that person was wearing all white, right? My mom was wearing all black.
Mhm.
Two very distinct colors, right? So I'm like, crap, like there's somebody in this house, bro. You know what I mean? So that one got me for sure. But
Yeah, I've had my share of incidents actually, and it kind of plays into my story a little bit. Just times when I knew God was making things clear to me. But the idea of a ghost, I've experienced what I do believe are demons, and I would say that is more than likely what it was. And it was when my mother passed away. There were just series of events, a couple nights in a row, where I would think that I was hearing her talking to me, and then she would mutate. into a very scary
Yeah,
creature. And I was like,
I've heard stories like that.
what the heck is this about? Like, like, first of all, I know the Bible even talks about it. It's like, even if someone came back from the grave, it wouldn't change your belief
Yeah,
and your behavior.
yeah,
And I'm like, but why would this be happening? And I knew, my mother had studied the Bible, and, she tried to change her life towards the end, but then her life was taken quickly. And so, that always stuck with me, which is like, no, demons are out there, and it is their job to unconvert like
Yeah.
that. They understand discipleship better than we ever will.
Yeah,
That's the way I
absolutely.
look at it. So they're looking for that opportunity, just like they did, when Satan challenged Jesus. Jesus was able to walk away, and Satan was like, "Hey, I'll come back at a more
Yeah.
opportune time for
Yeah.
me."
exactly.
Right? When you're weak, and I'm waiting for you.
No, you're absolutely right. I think that, especially when it comes to us, like, trying to get right with God, that's when we face, like, I think demonic challenges. Because even I had a cousin, or I have a cousin, when she was, her and her mom were, like, kind of in a rough patch in their life. They were, like, sharing a one room place, sleeping in the same bed, right? And so while she was studying the Bible, she told me that she woke up one random night, like 2 or 3 in the morning, right? TV was on, but, like, that, like, staticky stuff that
The
happens.
fuzz.
So that was on, right? And she realized, I believe her, but behind the TV, she said she saw a figure of a man with a pig's head just staring at her. Like, didn't move, didn't say anything, just locking eyes with her. And maybe it was like sleep paralysis, right? Because I think that's a demons too, honestly. But, like, that's just crazy. Like, why would that happen when she's already like 16, 17 and she's studying the Bible? First time that ever happens. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah,
that'd be crazy.
I used to have a lot of sleep paralysis before I was a disciple. Like, even before I was in the Bible, it was like 1 to 2 times a week, like every week, dude. And it would, like, scare me to the point where I got so used to it, where, like, if I felt it coming and, like, I would hear things, I would just close my eyes and just be like, just wait till it's over. Like, I would hear growling in my ear, like heavy footsteps near me, and I'm just there and I can't move. So I would just close my eyes and be like, "You're not real. You're not real."
Yeah.
But they are, bro. Like,
Yeah,
demons are real.
absolutely.
But dude, as soon as I started studying the Bible, as soon as I got baptized, like, I haven't had sleep paralysis since. It was, like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I've had a couple of those experiences,
Yeah.
but more of a sense of, like, almost like something was on me, weighing me down.
Yeah.
Like not just that I couldn't move my muscles, but that even if I could,
Like an elephant.
I couldn't. Yeah, like I couldn't move my body to
Yeah.
get up, to get out of the situation. But you're right. After being with God for a period of time, those kind of things disappear.
Yeah.
And I do think that that's true, right? Like, why wouldn't Satan attack when you're getting closer to God?
Mhm.
Like, of course. And when you're fresh out of the water of baptism, that's your weakest points, right?
Yeah.
When you're still trying to make sense of it all. But as you get stronger, it's the same thing. I think just like he with Jesus, it's all right. There'll be a day when you're not.
Yeah.
And he comes back. I mean, I'm sure all of us have had,
Yeah.
challenging experiences since we were baptized.
Absolutely.
I know I have.
Well, yeah, just like make our segue into that. So Morris, your story is incredible, man. If you could condense it.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't have 5 hours
Yeah.
to talk on this podcast, right?
No, 60 years, man, in the making. Long, let's see, the Reader's Digest version.
Yeah.
I was born during segregation in this country. So a lot has occurred in my life, growing up, as a Black man, so to speak, but coming from a mixed family. And it's like, I relate to the experience of the Latino culture today, trying to find safe cities. We had to move to a safe city for an integrated family back in the 60s. And, so my introduction to life as a young child was a little volatile. I saw my mom persecuted. I saw, I went through a disastrous time, having a house taken by a tornado, moved to, a big city out east. And a lot of that plays into kind of what happened to me, became integrated with a community that was very different from the one I grew up in. And, experienced, what it was like to see middle-class white America and drugs and all those things that happened between the 60s and 70s, watched my brothers escape Vietnam, if you will. refusing to go to war.
Mhm.
And so a lot of that was an influence on who I became as a child. And inevitably, I found myself caught up in addictive behavior, um, before I was even double digits.
Mhm.
So I was probably 8 or 9. Uh, I can say that, highlight of all that is I got to be at Woodstock.
Yeah, right.
But that behavior led me down a really dark road.
Yeah.
Over time, I can look back and go, God was always there, influencing my life and trying to reach out to me. Uh, Allowed me to, experience some success in the entertainment industry, but still trying to, hold on to my life, with drugs and alcohol and all these other things that, I was exposed to at a very young age.
Mhm.
And then I had a couple incidents, right, in my life where I went to bat with God and, tried to stand up to him and call him out on things. And one of those ended in a very biblical situation over in the Mediterranean Sea, where a squall, one of these storms out of nowhere, pinned me on a cliff. And God proceeded to batter me for about 2 hours with heavy rains and the back of a rock.
Yeah.
But then I also saw him intervene in my life back in New York. During a little episode, and my brother and I were kind of running the streets, and I got myself caught up in some really bad stuff with some dealers, and they were involved in a shootout.
Mhm.
And God cloaked me, and I'll never forget that. Like, I remember waking up in a closet in the morning, and I could see through the closet from the shotgun holes that had splattered the door, but none had splattered me.
Yeah.
And I walked away, and everybody else, I mean, there was blood everywhere, and they were all gone. But how God does those things, I don't know. But I
Yeah.
never forgot it.
Yeah.
I never forgot it. And I remember when I got sober, I kind of said to myself, all right, I'm gonna change myself. I'm gonna change my life. I know that God's there. And I started reading the Bible on my own.
Mhm.
But I had walked away from church when I was a teenager because there was just tons of hypocrisy. Right. And I grew up, with family that were Muslim, family that were Baptist. I remember one day my mother, I was probably 12 or 13, handed me a piece of paper, said, look, you need to go find your own church because you were baptized in the Lutheran church and none of us are Lutherans.
Right.
And I was confused, like,
Like, wait a minute.
they're different churches. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, we all read the Bible. Why are we different churches? And, and she grew up with a Roman Catholic family that went to Latin Mass. And I remember remembering going to Latin Mass, memorizing the words and how to read the tablet for which scripture we were doing that day, every year, that same day.
Mhm.
And I thought, this is all crazy.
Yeah.
And I would watch my parents come home and, drink and watch football on Sundays after church. And I thought, I can't do this. This is like, I'm not going to mock God.
Yeah.
I know that I'm messed up, but I'm not going to sit here and mock God. So I stopped going to church. But, after I had got sober, went to rehab, kind of changed my life, got back into the entertainment industry. I remember it was a New Year's Eve in New York City, and it was horrible. It was raining and cold and icy, and I was just depressed.
Mm.
Like, I had no connection to my family, no relationships. And I really, really considered going back to, the crackhead life.
Mhm.
And I did something that I laugh at it because I go, God is always watching you. Just like a child writes a letter to Santa Claus, I wrote a letter to God.
Mm.
And I put it in a mailbox with a stamp. And God bless whoever it is that reads all those
Yeah,
those
right.
letters. But I just was very simple. I was like, hey, God, this is Morris. And I know you don't necessarily hear from me often anymore, but I was just thinking, I really need you to help me with these 3 things. And literally, in order,
Mhm.
God answered each of those prayers. He gave me an opportunity to go back on tour, to move back to Europe. He handed me a fiance from my past on a platter there, and he introduced me to a disciple. And I had asked for those things. I just wanted to work again, wanted to have a relationship, and I wanted to meet somebody who actually followed him.
Yeah.
And how that all occurred was, bizarre. I'll go to the end of that story is, there was this punk rock, white South African, spiky haired, leather studded wearing
Wild.
kid running down a subway in Germany during
During a bad
Labor
time.
Day, when all the neo Nazis were out, and he cornered me, and I was going to kill this guy.
Yeah.
And his name was Axel Donahue, and I'll never forget Axel. Man, he talked really quick because he was late for work, handed me a card for a Bible talk, and
You
jumped
said,
on
you
the
said he
train.
was like staring you down before he ran up.
Yeah, he was. I don't understand it
Yeah.
now. I'm like, oh yeah, he was a brand new disciple trying to reach out to somebody in a foreign country, and he was scared, right? And so he picked me
Of all people.
of all people, the black guy down in the subway. And I remember him handing me that Bible talk card and jumping on the train and giving me the call me thing. And I thought, man, you are crazy. How dare you do that? You look like a Nazi, and this is the wrong day to do it. And when I got to the opera house where I was working that day, our lead singer she was out. She was down for the count. And they had flown this woman over from New York. And she was probably the most amazing singer I'd ever heard, specifically singing this one song about God. And I just walked up to her and said, I would help her out, in the industry if she ever needed help. And she handed me the exact same Bible talk card.
That's crazy.
Mary Winston Smith. And I'll never forget that day because I was sitting there with those two cards in my hand, and she was like, "Do you think you can make it?" I was like, "Make it. I'll pick you up."
I have to go now.
I'm like, God has made it very clear. And that was the beginning of my journey. I started studying the Bible in Berlin, came back to New York for the summer, finished studying, got baptized there. And then, 6 months later, I was in the ministry and had left show business. And it was just beyond my wildest imagination. And a lot's happened since then. And I know you're aware of it too. I've had a couple of marriages inside of the church, and both of my wives have left, and trying to raise two kids now, sort of by myself, and that's been a challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, to say the least. But what I do realize is, God has never let me down. Like, God has always opened doors for me, provided for me, and that's what I hold on to. And that's really what it is. I think that's the important thing is, there are examples in the Bible. It's like Job, Jesus, Paul. I mean, these guys, they gave flesh and blood. And you go, why do things like this happen to people who are really trying to follow? It's just how it works. There's no guarantees here. The guarantee is that, God's on your side. And at the end of this all, he wins.
Yeah.
And that's what I hold on to be quite honest.
Yeah, like I said before, like you inspire me a lot more, and I've actually taken one of your quotes that you said a while back. I don't know, maybe you remember better than I do. I don't know if it was for like a midweek sermon or even a Sunday service where you said it, but like I think about that a lot because I feel like us three can relate a lot to like things we've been through. And sometimes I ask myself questioning God too, like, hey, how come my friends have all this and like I have what I have, right?
What you getting at?
I remember you told the whole church, like, hey, sometimes God blesses these people because that's the closest they'll get to heaven.
Yeah.
And like we're going through what we're going through for a reason. When kind of like you just said right now, God has always come through for us.
Yeah.
Whether it's the last dollar, the last meal, whatever it is, right? God always pulls through. And I think it's very inspiring because when I think about the stuff that I've been through, like I do think about you. Because I know you've been through a very similar, if not even harder, life than we've already lived. So I do want to ask you, like, looking back on past 30 years of your Christianity, like, what would you say was like your hardest time? Like, what helped you get through that?
Wow. I mean, there's been so many different things that I go, I don't know what the hardest. I mean, honestly, I always say the one you're in right now, that seems like the hardest.
Yeah.
So, my spouse left about 2 years ago now. My stepdaughter's moved back with me, and, Colin is now a middle schooler, so about to be a teenager. So I got a teenager and about to be a teenager. And I'll be honest, my kids, they don't come with a playbook.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even matter that, I mean, I've known you since,
I was like 6, man.
when you were still young, but, I served as your teen or preteen and teen leader at some point in time. And And even having that experience
Doesn't
of leading youth and teen and campus and all those things, I go, I still don't have a playbook for my own children.
Yeah.
And I think this is the most challenging time for me, which is, okay, what is it I don't see? I think just not knowing.
Yeah.
Whereas some of the other experiences, I had my band fire me, after I became a Christian. And that was challenging, because it was like, wait, this is my, you can't fire me.
Yeah.
And they're like, but I got fired for proselytizing it with my own band members. I've had my share of ups and downs, as an educator, going through, different challenges and being called out for different things and charged with different crimes,
Yeah.
as it would be, because of the way society and law has changed, the rights that kids have and the lack of thereof for educators. But I think now is the most challenging time. And I think part of that is getting older.
Mm.
So I think I have the fear of being alone.
Yeah.
Even though, I got tons of friends here in the church, it's, the relationship part of it. And I love my kids and I love hanging out with my kids, but I already know they're like their dad in a way, which is they're about to like go their own route. And so I think that's the hardest challenge for me right now, is just believing that even now, despite everything, God can make all of this the best for me, whatever that is. And I think that's the hard part, is that, the last time that I went through this, God shipped me out to Europe. I would have never expected it, but that's how he orchestrated the next phase of my life.
You wouldn't have had your son.
And it's funny, I just said that to Colin literally the other day. I was like, if I hadn't gone through this crazy period of time in, the Los Angeles school district, and then been divorced, I would have never been sent to Europe. I would have never led, or restarted the campus ministry over there. And then I would have never met your mom. You wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
And I go, so now what? What's the next phase?
Yeah.
Hopefully no more children. No.
Yeah.
Like, wow, man, it gets harder as you get older to have kids, man. Seriously, I mean, it's about to be 63 with an 11-year-old, and man, he runs.
And he doesn't even look like it, by the way.
He runs me ragged, man. He does. I mean, it's great. I'm grateful. I go, that's God and genetics. So that, that ain't nothing I do, because I'm still eating all kinds of bad food. Right.
Not to even consider, like you said, you've been into drugs for a long time prior to that, but you still look great.
And,
Yeah, that too. That's God.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think the biggest challenge is always the one you're in, because it's something new. And I think that's how God is, right? It's okay. You refine by the fire, but the fire is not always the same fire. You're not always in the same frying pan. That changes.
Yeah.
Right. And each time is something new, but I deep down believe that there's a purpose. It's not for naught. It's whatever it is, it's for the next series of events. Like I go, okay, why did God let me be on tour playing drums for so many years? Well, probably because then when he sent me overseas to do mission work, I fit right in. Like, it wasn't strange for me. So I go, so now what? Like, what am I being prepared for? And I think that's the only reason, it helps me stay faithful. It's like, this isn't about punishment. It's about preparation.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, I think you're right. You say that because I can look back on my life and like I can think about stuff like, oh, the stuff that I've been through with my dad. Oh, that's hard. Or when I became a disciple, I got into a worldly relationship with somebody here. Man, that was hard. Or like when I moved to the Valley to a completely new church, man, that was hard. Or even with my accident, I got the anxieties. Like, man, that was hard. But like, it's all preparation, like you said, right? Like, even more recently with my anxiety. So my sister called me last weekend because her boyfriend got into a really bad car accident like 2-3 months ago. And he had a Mustang too, right? Somebody crashed. A truck hit him also. It wasn't as bad as mine, but still pretty bad, to the point where he has anxiety now. And so she called me up and she's like, brother, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say to him. Like, help me, please. So like Carla and I, we talked to them for like an hour on the phone just to make sure they were okay. We both gave our own points of views and like, whatever, had a good conversation, right? And we hung up and Carla was like, babe, like, you know what? Like, this is why you went through what you went through.
mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, it sucked, but like, look, you're helping my brother-in-law as it is, you know. And it's crazy because, like you said, it's all preparation. You know, it might seem like literally, like you said, one of the worst times in our lives because it's all new to us. Because that anxiety stuff is extremely new to me. But I mean, people approach me now and like ask how I deal with it. You know, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm still going through it, but like, this is what's helped me, and I hope it helps you. But I'm here if you want to talk.
I
You
think
know,
the
it's
hard
all-
things are there too. I mean, they're there to benefit. I mean, everything that happens, God does for those He loves. Like
Yeah.
that's a scripture I believe
Yeah.
deep in my heart, and it's like, so it's something I got to learn too, right? Whatever it is that I'm going through, it's to help me get closer to God, get closer to that, right? That final moment. But it can God can then use it to do whatever He wants with other people outside, right? That's the part where I go. It's I used to use this analogy. It's like a real fancy carpet, like a real carpet, like the ones you buy over in Egypt and things,
Mhm.
right? Where the pattern on the top is gorgeous. That's what God sees,
geometrical.
right? The pattern on the bottom is just a bunch of strings all full
Yeah.
of dirt and dust. And that's what we see. We just see
Yeah.
like the disaster and the
bottom.
mess. And we're like, how in the world are you going to make something good of this? But it's like, it's already made.
Yeah.
You just can't see it.
Yeah.
Right. And God is orchestrating it in a way that, yeah, you feel like you're just a piece of dusty thread hanging, but you have no idea
What's on the
what
other
the big
side?
picture is and how you fit into it. And you're important, right? Because if you pull that string, you could destroy,
Yeah.
right, the canvas that
One
it's
strand,
created,
that's it.
right. It would mess up the canvas. Does that mess up God's plan? No, but it's just really just accepting the fact that, hey, I'm just supposed to be a tool anyway,
Mhm.
right? I mean, yeah, I grew up in America. I want to live the American dream, of course. I get, and I understand that too, but not at the expense of salvation.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever that cost is, I look back and it's like, I think there's a reason God put the stories in the Bible. He put it in there. I mean,
Absolutely.
like His 12 most important disciples, they had a hard time.
Yeah.
Like, can't compare that to anything I've gone through. My life's been a breeze compared to that. Even through all the challenges, I go, my head isn't being put in a guillotine. I'm not being hung upside down on a cross. Like none of that's happened.
Yeah.
And I hope,
Hope it doesn't.
that our society isn't headed that way. I mean,
Who knows?
I've seen some. I was telling Jacob the other day, it's like I have a guy working on my house, and he made me watch these two movies that really threw me for a loop: Idiocracy and Don't
Right.
Look Up. And I
Right.
went, wow. I hope that's not where we are as a race of human beings. Like, are we really losing? We've lost so much sight of what really is valuable that we're just gonna run this course of idiocracy. It's like, I hope not.
Literally.
I hope not. But again, I think that's that's the purpose of your podcast. That's the purpose of all the things we do as a disciple, is to try to like make the world aware. Like, God's still here. God still loves us. Doesn't matter how bad you are. There's still hope.
Yeah.
Right. There really is. So.
Yes. Something you were saying, man, like, how like, God allows us to go through these things, but it's like I see it's more like He trusts us to help somebody else with it. So it's like with you. I was telling you about like how like God let me go through what I went through with my mom and stuff, but then I find somebody else, one of my close friends ends up losing their mom. And he comes to me for advice.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I wouldn't have known how to deal with that unless this happened to me. And I was able to help this dude. And then now at work, man, whenever someone's like going through loss, like they ask me like, how'd you deal with that? And I'm like, dude,
it's funny you say that because I feel like there's people at work that have lost their parents, and they always bring you up. Oh yeah, like what can this happen? Or I shared it, like Jacob talked to me, and like they always say you really helped them through it, or like kind of help them to like view it differently. So I know God's definitely using you at work, bro. Yeah,
so it's crazy. Like you saying that, I'm like, dang, bro, like that's just God. Like God knew it's like I can trust Armando with this. So you went through that, and then now it's like you're helping somebody else. But that just shows how God is just like He doesn't just only care about us, but He's like, I'm gonna use Him to help another child of mine.
Yeah.
So it's like it's crazy seeing that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, think about like even the timing, right?
Yeah.
Like, when you came, we just happened to have grief recovery going on, and people who had experienced stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that then you could then use even that information to
Mhm.
move on out, right? Because again, that's that whole point, right? In Acts, where it talks about it sets the times and the places for everything,
Mhm.
right? Timing is everything. Sometimes I think we don't see that, right? God puts people in our lives, and we kind of shove, kind of shove them off or something. It's like, but it was the timing that was important.
Mhm.
Not that God can't use somebody else, but He wanted you to be that person. It's
Yeah.
like He had prepped you for this moment, and then right, He brings this person into your life, and you're supposed to be there for them, right? Because for whatever reason, maybe you're the catalyst for them to finally see God too.
Right.
Yeah.
I look at that like some of the episodes. You talk about the weird spiritual things you go through. And I was leading a small group out in New York once with this sister. We were both in the theater, and we were just having like a little planning time, right? We went out to this mall before they opened, but you can always get coffee there. And we would do this downtown New York all the time. And this woman came in, and she didn't look like she was homeless or anything, but she was, kind of all like gypsied out and stuff. And we were like, yeah, we should probably say hi. Like we should talk to her. Like we're here. Like, we're supposed to be Bible talk leaders, whatever. And we walked over to her, and she was like, she grabbed the sister's hand. And I remember Leslie looking at me and thinking, okay, this is awkward. I was like, yeah, this is a little awkward, isn't it? Like she like just got your hand, like holding your wrist. And she's like, can I just read your palm real quick? I thought, oh man, this is not gonna be good. Like, what do we say? And then that's when I go, this is where those scriptures come into play, where it's like, don't worry, I'll give you the words to say. We didn't have to say anything. She looked at Leslie's palm, and she looked at me, and she looked at Leslie, and she went, you're disciples of Jesus, aren't you? And she ran away.
Oh my god!
Wow.
And I was like, what just happened?
Well, that's
wild.
And we sat down, we had our little coffee and stuff, and I was like, all right, we got to make sense of what just happened. What just happened? And we were looking through the Bible, and then it hit it. It was like simultaneous. We both went, the scripture, the spirits recognize each other.
Yeah.
We like, that's what we get to talk about at Bible Talk. Like, that's it. That's what just happened.
Yeah.
The spirits recognize each other, and they see each other. It's all above our heads, right? It's just going on outside of us, man. It led me into like a 10-year study of the difference between soul and spirit. Right. And I come to this idea that, like, okay, your soul and your spirit are separated in your body, and they, where whatever spirit is in you, that's where your soul will be and go when you pass away. Right. You either have God's spirit filling you or you don't. And that spirit will determine where your soul ends up. And it was so clear to us, man. Like she ran like the pigs in the story of the demon possessed man.
That's wild.
Like literally ran out of the mall, and we just had to like sit and like take it all into perspective for like half an hour.
How do you respond to that? Like,
we didn't have to,
Yeah,
and that's the
yeah,
beauty. Like we didn't have to respond because she responded,
yeah.
or the spirit in her responded. Quite honestly, I don't think it was her.
Yeah. Cool.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but it's like those kind of things reaffirm my faith. Like I go, these are those things where I go, I'm sure God does this for everybody. Like points out where scripture is real, even if it seems surreal, right? Because it's way above our heads. It's outside of a realm that we understand, right? We don't understand it, but it's there. Like I always say, I used to use this analogy. It's like we live in a life where we're just a ping pong ball. God's on one side of the table, Satan's on the other side of the table, and God's playing the game out. And they both hit hard.
Yeah.
But God is secure in the fact that he's going to win the match. Problem is sometimes we want to fall off the table and just roll away. Like, get
I
out
think
of
sometimes that too, but I was saying one of the other episodes, like, the story of Job, we literally see God and Satan make a deal.
Yeah.
And so I fully believe that they still do that. Obviously we don't know, but I don't see why they wouldn't. I don't see why Satan wouldn't still like, oh, let me test Morris real quick. God's like, go ahead. He's not gonna fall away. He's like, he said he's so secure he's gonna win. You know.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean we don't struggle.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and have our down. I mean, yeah. Do I have thoughts of walking away sometimes? And yeah, of course, those thoughts come to my mind. But then you know, if you've got enough of the Spirit in you, and you're still, you know, and you also need to be reading your Bible. You need to be doing all those things still to refresh your faith. But if you've got enough of it, you'll pause long enough to think through the whole thing, which is okay. We're not talking about today or tomorrow. We're talking about the end of this, right? The end of the story. How does this story end? Because that's all that matters at the end, right? And that's hard sometimes because we live in the now. And sometimes the now is just painful.
Kind of like what you were saying, you know, being scared of what's coming. You know, we don't know. So
We don't.
what more do we fear?
Yeah.
You know, you were going to say something.
Yeah, dude, that story is like if that was me, I would have just been hyped because I'm like, I would have been like, bro, like it's the scriptures, like even the demons know who Jesus is and they're afraid of Jesus. Like, I mean, even he's like, please do not torment me when Jesus about to cast that dude out. Where he's like, please, like, don't even get near me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, the fact that she ran away is like, bro, these demons are like scared of Jesus, and like,
Yeah, bro.
that's how much we just need to be
In it.
like in it, bro. Because it's like, you guys have the Spirit of Jesus in you. You know, you have the Holy Spirit, and I was just like, oh crap, wrong people to read the
Yeah, literally. Because I mean, that's the thing, you never know, man. Like maybe she or the demon, that spirit within her, was like hunting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just happened to run across you two, and you cast it out, so to speak. You know.
Never know.
Yeah.
That's actually crazy to think about that. Like,
right.
You probably did cast it out.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, never know.
Oh,
it all played out at the end. That's true.
And I want to ask you for my last part, you know, like you said earlier, you pretty heavily involved in my teenage years, you know, from spending summers at your house to packing your car on the way to church with 5-seater car with like 8 kids. I was in the trunk a couple times. What inspired you to like take that role for those 2-3 years, you know? Because I know that helped me a lot, man, just getting a lot closer to you and some of the guys that were there, even though they might not be around anymore.
Yeah.
You know, the lessons that we had, conversations we had together really stuck with me. And I do feel like that's part of why I'm still here, you know? You're still an important part of mine and Carlos' lives because we were both there during those summers. But what inspired you to like take that leadership, take that role?
Yeah, preteens and teens. You know, and the funny is, I'm probably the oldest person ever doing that here. I don't know. I think there's a, you know, this, you know, psychology or medicine might say this. You know, maybe my long history of addiction as a very young person, you know, stunted me growing up, you know, emotionally. And so I related more to people a lot younger than me. You know, that's possible too, right? That I had that in me, the Peter Pan syndrome. But I think early on, especially in our movement, everyone dreamed of being in the ministry. And God gave me that opportunity as a young disciple, and then took that and put me back in entertainment to then lead a different type of ministry around the church, and then used my background to start another ministry, the CR, our chemical recovery ministry. It's like all those things I said, God kept preparing me for different things along the road. But when I came out to the Antelope Valley, I think, and I'll never forget it, the brother who was leading the church here, he literally sat down at lunch one day and went, you know, we don't have a lot of people like you here. You know, talking about actors and musicians. And I remember thinking, wow, okay, that made me not feel like I fit in at all. Yeah, right. Like I don't really belong here. And it was true. Like it was really real. Yeah, like that was the truth. There weren't a lot of people from an artistic background here.
I mean, back then there wasn't even like half the band we have now.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, there was
not even
no band at all back then, but that's a whole different conversation, you know. But I think I just wanted to be a part of something.
Sure.
And I think I had that need to serve in some capacity. And you're right, we didn't have a band back in those days. That was kind of hadn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So I didn't have that to do, right? Which was honestly, you know, one of the roles I played in the church
Yeah.
in New York was being in the band and working on some of the big conferences around the country and things like that. So I think serving in the youth ministry, because I really didn't enjoy doing Kids Kingdom, to be honest.
Relatable.
You know, the little kids were really tough for me.
Yeah.
Was just something I enjoyed, you know, along with sharing story. And I think that's it. You know, part of it was I could story tell to preteens and teens, and you know I love to talk, and I have stories,
Yeah.
and I think it was beneficial, but I also enjoyed, you know, I mean, you know it, you know, as I started teaching, we would always have food from leftover food from school. I mean, it was just, it ended up being a perfect scenario where people could hang out at my house, you know, we could devour food together, you know, I could learn a little bit about video games and Call of Duty, though I didn't learn much. Those kind of things just made me feel a part of the community here. And then of course, over the years, as all of you grew up, we just built relationships. I mean, now we're adults and we still have a relationship. We still work together in the church. We like those things were invaluable for me. You know, and then I go, you know, why did God put that on my heart? Because I guess he knew 10 years later he was going to ship me off to Europe to reboot a campus ministry, you know, in a atheistic continent. Literally, it wasn't just, you know, it started off in Milan, and then the next thing I knew, I was working with the churches all through Western Europe, and it's like that. I had something to bring and give to that because I had spent 3 years, 4 years here, kind of being trained to do that, though it wasn't what I had thought about. But I just think, you know, anything that you can do to help just makes you feel more of a part of the community. And that's, I think, half the battle is staying faithful.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to do it on your own.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of storytelling, you really are a great storyteller. I think that's what really drew us to want to hang out with you more as well back in the day. I say back in the day, it was like, what?
Been a while.
Man, like 15 years.
Been a while.
That's crazy. You know, yeah, but I mean, hey, guys, like for the viewers that are watching, man, like these aren't even half the stories Morris can tell, man. Like there are so many things he's been through, so many stories that are uplifting and sad and just, you know, inspiring. And if you guys want him as a guest again, let us know. I mean, we'd be more than happy to have you back. You know, I mean, you know, I think just hearing what you shared today, it's going to be inspiring for people as well. Yeah. I know it's like a refresher, inspiring for me. You know, it's always great having a conversation with you. You know, but I think that I don't know. I just hope the viewers find it inspiring because, you know, I mean, you know, the whole goal for us is to find people that are trying to find God or reconnect with God and just, you know, bring that spark back into them, right, or into somebody that's trying to find it, but. Seeing somebody who has been through it all, you know, I think that, you know, we said it on the podcast before, you know, we think that people that, we didn't have a debate, but, you know, we had an episode, we were talking about, like Jacob was saying, he wishes that he grew up in the church to avoid stuff. And I was like, well, I grew up in the church and I still went through stuff.
Yeah, we all have to. I mean, I'm watching my children go through it.
Yeah, and they grew up in church.
And it's a challenge, but I don't think that's the answer. No. You know, yes, it's great. It's awesome to have parents that have a connection and relationship with God so that, you know, the Bible says if you raise them with those ideas, they'll eventually come back to them. And I do trust that too, which is no matter how bad it gets, because I look at my life and I go, my mother taught me about God. And even though I left the church, even though I went through those struggles that I went through, when things got bad enough, that's who I looked to. I looked to God. When I wrote that letter, I mean, as childish as it was, it's because I believed. I believed there was one. I believed God exists. I believed that he heard me. I believed that he listened. And I know that he knew how messed up I was. But I also believed that he could forgive. And I think, there's some benefit to growing up in the church, but by the same token, God can touch you. Doesn't matter, right? He gives everybody the opportunity. Whatever that is, whatever your bottom is, he's there. So, you know, we need people that grew up in the church, and we need people who didn't.
Yeah.
To reach the world around us, right? We need. Remember when we were starting some of the ministries in New York, we need people who come from a homosexual background to reach out to those who are in that, right? In that particular sin. We need people who come from, addictive backgrounds to recover and reach out to those who are in those.
Absolutely.
We needed people in the arts ministry to reach out to those who others didn't have access to. Like I had access to people that the average person wouldn't.
Yeah.
Right. A minister walking the street sharing his faith can't just walk up to a Broadway star and start talking. That might be awkward.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe they would be open, but most likely they're very protected, and their security keeps people a distance from them. So I think there's a need for everybody from every walk of life, for God to then reach everybody. Right. Which is, I think, the whole point. When you look at the book of Acts, that's kind of what was happening, was all these people were there, and then God sent them back out because they would be more effective reaching the people that they were, connected to in their lives.
Yeah.
So, it definitely helps having a belief brought to you by your parents, but that's not the only way in.
That being said, I mean, even going back to teenage years, for me, like back then, man, we had a huge group of teenagers.
Yeah, we did.
Right. And so now there's like a handful of us. What do you think it was that caused all those kids to leave or like not want to come back? Because a lot of them grew up in church with us, right? And so now literally there's like 4 or 5 of us that are still here out of like 15, 20 kids. What do you think happened?
Yeah, I've seen this in 2 waves, actually.
The wave before me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think the world I think Satan gets wiser also as time goes on.
Sure.
And I think we're not always, how do I say this? And I don't say this as a knock to anybody. I think as we get older and set in our ways, I think we can always go back, and this goes kind of into the Hope Music Ministry and how we got the band back.
Mm-hmm.
Is we can believe that, hey, the way we grew up, the way things were for us is how we're going to share it with the generation after us. But the world is evolving, and I think we have to learn to evolve with it. I don't think, if I held on to the principles of my generation, I don't think I'd be as effective in reaching out to others at your age or even younger, right, or in between.
Yeah.
I think we have to grow. As the world evolves. I think we have to keep fresh with what's going on around us. Yeah, do I understand everything every kid says today? No, it's like Greek. But I try to keep relationships, right, with people of different generations. I do believe my best times in the church were when we had family ministry. Like I remember in New York at one point, and I was a part of the arts ministry and the beginning of that daytime ministry. But we at one point we just said, no, we need elders, we need married couples, we need single people, we need children all to meet together in small groups. Why? Because that dynamic of, you raise a child with a village, right? It's that's a age-old belief, which I think is real. Like as Americans, we've separated ourselves. Like we're very independent, and I'm probably just as guilty. I probably said to my kids 100 times, 18th birthday, bye-bye. Yeah, right. You need to get out, get a job, goodbye, right? Move on. And that's not the way the rest of the world functions, right? And surely not historically. It's like family was important. And yet we talk about building family in the church, but we then separate each other, right? And I think we really got to think about that. Like children see our lives, whether they acknowledge it or not. They see our sinful nature, they see our hypocrisy, and they see the things we do to sacrifice for them and God, whether they acknowledge it or not. Sure. Like I can get all depressed. Like that's my thing now, right? My thing is I can get depressed. And I have to be careful of doing that. And me and Colin had a conversation last night, and I just wanted him to know I was saying it out of love and kind of just, and it hurt me. Yeah. Like it hurt my feelings. I was like, I really do love you. And I know you're not going to say that. And I go, that's just how God feels. A lot of times with me,
Yeah.
right? I know he loves me and he's just wanting me to say it and talk to him. And then I don't. And I go do my own thing and mess up. And then I come and go, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can you help me?
It's
And
like,
I'm like, oh, I'm just a child, only, 60 years later. And I think that a lot of that, those lost generations, it's because we didn't build a family. We didn't make it a family, and the world has evolved, especially in our country, to this idea of more independence, children's rights above adult rights. And I think we're allowing the society to impact, or even better, infect what happens in church culture. And I was like,
sure.
Church culture just needs to be church culture. Like, the Bible is the Bible. We don't need to alter it, right? We just need to follow it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it may not be easy, right? It's not easy. And the influences of, the globalization of the world and internet and gaming and, everything that's happened since COVID and how that changed the dynamics of relationships. I think we have to step back and go, wait, what's important here? What's important is to build the family, and I see it all the time. I mean, I go to Canes sometimes with Colin, and we watch families sit there, next to each other on their phones, and they never say anything to each other. And I thought, well, that's Satan's thing, right? Isolation.
Yeah.
Because if you're isolated, then he can do all the talking, right? And for sure, when people are scrolling through podcasts and scrolling through things like that, right? They have more input from the world nowadays than they do from God.
Yeah.
Right. And so podcasts like these are important, right? Which is, we need to flood the market with this kind of stuff. We need to flood the market with, productions by Angel Studios and things that, like The Chosen, things that put God back in the forefront of people's minds.
Yeah.
Because 2,000 years ago, he was in the forefront of people's minds. He was walking down the street, causing commotion, right? Not by doing anything, just by being there.
Yeah.
Just being alive caused the commotion, right? And now, we've kind of reduced it to some TV shows and, some jewelry and
some movies here and there.
Yeah. So I think it's just getting back to some, I don't want to call them old fashioned principles, more old biblical principles, which is, we got to create family. We got to make it exciting for people to be, also got to make it interesting for children to be here. I hate to say that. It's like, even on a Sunday morning from the pulpit, we can preach expository to adults, but a child may not be able to sit through 40 minutes of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's like, what are we doing to build the child up, also to make them feel like they can participate? I think that matters.
Yeah.
Right. But if a teen or a preteen wants to get up and go out in the hallway just because it's boring, then we lost them.
Something's wrong.
Yeah. We've lost them. I think there's lots of things to consider. Right.
And I think we saw that. I think that was a problem before too. Like exactly what you were saying. There were kids that were in there who didn't want to be in there. They just sit out in the hallway, exactly like you said, until service was over. But yeah, I think you're right. I think we even had conversations with the lead pastor about changing some things, and hopefully, he seems like he's open to it. So hopefully, we can start, adding some of this stuff into our services, and just our thing was just using social media to get out there more. We see other churches heavy on social media. Just, we're making funny videos now because we saw other churches doing that. We're like, that inspired us to do it.
Right. And
we've gained followers from that. We had comments from that too. And honestly, that gets more traction than the clips from our podcast does, but that's what's attracting people, right? Just little funny Christian videos.
Yeah.
So.
And so what's wrong with that?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's like, if that's what's working, then that's what's working.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Do you have any closing thoughts before we end the episode?
This was a good episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
This was a good episode, man. Yeah, guys, I think it's just a lot to learn from this episode for sure. Morris has this was 5% of his stories.
Yeah.
So he has whole 95%. So if you guys want him back in another podcast, please let us know. We are definitely open to doing that. I already knew this episode was going to be good just because it's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
I live with the guy, so I hear these stories too, and it's it's cool to see it, man. And I think something that I would say is like, you asked him about like why does he help like the teens? I think it's just because you're hard. Like you just have a care for people. I mean, you took
Yeah.
me in
Yeah.
like no hesitation. Like when I just needed a place to stay, and I think it's just your heart. God gave you that heart to just care for people. So I think
Yeah.
that's just what it really mainly is. You know, because God did a lot for your life, so you help others. So pretty much what I get from it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for being on, Morris. Yeah, like I said, this is a great episode. I think this is the most like excited I've been to talk to you, talk on the podcast since I don't know, it's been a few weeks.
Yeah.
But I mean, do you have any closing thoughts for us, for the viewers? What anything you want to end on a note, real quick?
No, I mean, I think the only thing I can say, especially for those trying to figure out, where God is and, how he's working in your life is, I mean, you just got to look at your life and kind of put in perspective, like the path that he's put you on and everything that he's done up to this point in your life. And I guarantee you will see a pattern, right? That pinpoints what God wants from your life. And again, it goes back to the scriptures, like not plans to harm you, plans to prosper you, plans to give you a future, plans to help you have the best life you can have. And that sometimes I think that it's not what we imagine. It's like it doesn't mean you're going to be, star in the NBA or the NFL or in Hollywood. It just means that who you are, who God knit you to be in your mom's womb, he can make that reality for you and you will be happy. Like that's the thing. You will be extremely happy with who he made you to be. Even if it isn't what you think is, the ultimate goal in your life. But that would be the best advice I can give anybody. It's like, search your life and look at your life and just look back at everything that God has done to direct you to where you are today, even to watching this podcast today.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Well, yeah, again, thank you, Morris, just for being on. This has been really great. We hope you guys enjoyed the episode. We look forward to having Morris back on for sure. Get some more stories, But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'm Armando.
I'm Jacob.
We are the Gospel Guys. See you next time, you guys.